Good morning, Moms and Master Books. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about our Jacob's Math series, which would be our high school math series. We were fortunate enough to acquire that a couple years ago. We've gone through and cleaned it, and I just want to talk about it and what I feel the strengths are. I also have a special giveaway that I'm going to announce later on in this live event. So let me begin. We have two books in our Jacobs series. The first of those books is the algebra book. Now, this book, the cover looks like this, and it's listed as elementary algebra. And the thing to note, a lot of people will be, well, does that mean it's a grade school math book? No, the author, elementary means basic, and the author insisted that this is a basic algebra book, and so elementary was an important word to him, even though the market gets confused by it. It's still meaning basic algebra. It would be the equivalent of a 9th grade course and a full year course for sure. So, hey, good morning, Jessica. Good morning, Pamela. This course has actually been around, I think, let's see, over almost 40 years. It was first published in 1979. It has been used in public schoolrooms. It has been used in private schoolrooms. It has been used in homeschool. It is a phenomenal resource. And like I say, we are so happy to have it. The interesting thing about Jacobs is it's written very conversationally. It's very, there's stories, there's practical applications, and constantly relating it back. So let me see, here's how Jacobs begins the book. An English philosopher and science, Roger Bacon, wrote, "Mathematics is the gate and key of the sciences. Neglect of mathematics works injury to all knowledge, since he who is ignorant of it cannot know the other sciences or things of this world. In turn, algebra is the gate and the key of mathematics. For this reason, colleges and universities require mastery of algebra in preparation for studying not only the sciences, but also such subjects as math, as engineering, medicine, architecture, philosophy, psychology, and law. Although many problems can be solved by algebra can also be worked out by common sense, their translation into algebraic form generally makes them easier to deal with. Because of this, algebra has become the language of science. The goal of this course is to learn how to use this language." He goes on a little bit to discuss that. So there's the textbook, which this is the book that the student has the instruction in, and they also work from the problem sets that are in the teacher guide out of that book. Also included in that is our teacher guide. The teacher guide has the daily schedule, which basically has week and day, what to do for each. There's in every chapter, there are like 4 exercises, and this takes out one of the exercises and puts them in the book. The students aren't required to do this exercise, but you could do it if they needed extra practice, or you really felt that they needed to just do math. And then there's quizzes and tests, and the answer keys for everything is in the teacher guide. So a sample day, and I'm going to actually read through this lesson, but a sample day would be let's see, week 2, this would be the second semester. So week 2 of the second semester, day 55, read chapter 6, lesson 2 on formulas, do pages 2006 to 2008, complete exercises 1 and 2 on pages 2008 to 2010. And I'll go through that a little bit. So that would be your teacher guide. And then the solutions manual basically covers everything that you have. Now, you can kind of see the format and the way that that's written. It gives enough information to understand what the author is expecting and how they got there. Good morning, Jennifer. We're excited you're here too. Rick, Anna, Walter, use it for extra practice. So you use the 3 for extra practice, the third set for extra practice in the book, I'm assuming, in the teacher guide. Yeah, and Kristen, it is for 9th through 12th grade. Ideally, you would do algebra in 9th grade, right? So that's, most people will do it in 9th grade, but it's listed anywhere 9th through 12th grade. It would be an excellent algebra course to take before taking Algebra 2 or a college algebra, which would typically be your Algebra 2. Okay, so you have these 3 books. Now, so a typical lesson, and this is what I love about this course. I think what sets Master Books apart as a curriculum is that we have a heavy focus on application. And one of the moderators this week, I think it was Carity, mentioned that the biblical model of learning is really, here's knowledge, then we apply that knowledge or gain understanding, and then we have wisdom. And so the model is we give knowledge, we work that knowledge, and we gain wisdom. As opposed to some of the other methods that are out there, our method is so heavily based in application, whether it's the sciences, the language. We want people to use the knowledge to gain wisdom. And I think that that's the perfect way to sum up the Master Books difference and why it connects with families and kids, is because it really, it's not just about teaching knowledge and taking a test. You understand it and then you forget it. You're actually gaining wisdom. And I'm gonna take that so far marketing wise because I love it. But anyways, okay. So one lesson would be lesson 2. We're going to deal with formulas. It starts right out with once famous as the heaviest person in recorded history was Daniel Lampert, who lived in Leicester, England from 1770 to 1809. Approximately 6 feet tall, he weighed 700 pounds when his portrait of him was painted in 1806. The normal weight of a man can be determined by the equation, and then there's an equation which represents the weight in pounds. And an equation containing 2 or more variables that is used to solve practical problems is called a formula. Most formulas are written so that one variable appears by itself to the left of the equal sign, and an expression containing other variable or variables appear to the right. The variable on the left is often called the subject of the formula. The formula tells how to find its value when values for other variables are known. And it goes through just very conversationally. You don't need to teach this. This is an independent learning course because the student can read this information and then do the exercises. And so they would go through this very practical application of it. Starts out with, here's a man, here's how much he weighed. He was 6 foot, but the average man would be 5.5. And then calculating, like, what is the ideal weight based on normal height? And so then based on that, they go through very simply and ask, like, here are the exercises. I'm sorry, the lighting is so bad. So that you're going to do 2 sets. One set would be approximately 4 questions. The next set would be, let's see, the next set takes it on about 9 total questions. And so that's what the day's lessons were. On average, I believe that we expect this course to take a student approximately an hour to an hour and 15 minutes a day to complete. Certainly in the beginning, because there's a lot of review on addition, subtraction, that type of things. It would be a little bit less, but I have a son right now that's using it, and he loves it. He's doing really well in it. He did Principles of Mathematics 1 and 2, and then transitioned right into here. So that was the ideal pre-algebra course, and then transitions very smoothly into the elementary algebra, which is a great college prep algebra. And how do I know that? Okay, so we also offer the DVD series for this. This DVD basically has introductions or instruction for each chapter that explains to the student what they're going to do. It's very, it's almost informal in a way. It's non-threatening the way it's done. There's 6 hours of instruction here. It's on 6 DVDs. When you buy this, the maker of this series, Dale Callahan and his family, will provide homework help if there's questions. They'll actually work with you and help you with that. But I was, when we first saw in the series, before approaching Dale, I got copies of it and I watched the entire 6 hours of algebra instruction. If you know me, math is not my strong point. I so wish I had had this DVD series because they just made math seem doable. Yeah, I can't say it enough. So much of math was they taught concepts, gave you practice, but they never related it to the real world or to application. And because of that, I was like always lost. And as I'm watching this and they give little simple, tricks to remember how the orders of solving an equation work, or little things and that you could do to be more successful. I wish I'd had this. So Dr. Caleb Callahan, he was a professor. I think he's still at the University of Alabama, professor of engineering in Alabama. I know he also works with entrepreneurs and business launches now. But what he found was that homeschool students coming into university excelled in almost every area above the other students except one, and it was math. And a lot of times I think the homeschool movement is a little bit guilty of we focus heavily in the areas that we understand, being language and history, and then we tend to shy away a little bit from the harder sciences. We will do them, but we tend to stay away from them, and then we stay away a little bit from some of the more challenging mathematics courses. And there are mathematics courses that are very easy to implement, easy to use, but the retention really isn't there. And so, awesome. Rick Anna Walter says, our son is doing well with the algebra course. Also, we bought the DVD series but have not needed them. You may not need them. I think what I like it for the DVD series is for the mom or dad who are really intimidated by math. And this is that extra supplement that you could use if there's a question or maybe to gain another perspective. And I do think that they offer enough value in just the way that they teach things. The lessons aren't that long or intense that it would hurt the student to watch them. My son has only watched like 1 or 2 where maybe he got a little hung up and it just gave him that new perspective. But so Dr. Callahan said, you know what, they're not excelling they're excelling in every area, but they're not doing as well in the math. And so he really began investigating charter schools and private schools that were putting out exceptional students, what they were using, what they were doing, how they were doing it. And in his process of discovery, he came across Jacobs and absolutely fell in love with it. And I can see why, because I think that it is the type of course, it's not just teaching concepts and then a little bit of exercises in order to pass a test, which is more how I learned algebra the 4th time through. It's more about, okay, here's the concept, here's a real world thing. Okay, we're going to look at the weight of a man. We're going to try to figure out from the weight of a man how to determine the typical or average weight, what's a healthy weight of a man. And so it starts out with a heavy man that, here's who he was, how much he weighed, here's what the average should be based on height, that type of thing. And you're learning to apply it, the knowledge through application. And when you walk away from that chapter, you've actually now gained some wisdom, not just kept the knowledge. Hope that makes sense, because I really love that idea. And I think that that's what makes this course so successful. I think even though this has been used by charter schools, I was attending a homeschool convention, and there was a gentleman who was standing there forever going through our math courses, and he would go away and he'd come back. So finally I came up and I asked him, is there something I can help you with? And he said he had a couple of tough questions for me, which were way above me. But then he started telling me who he was, and he was a doctor of mathematics at a university. He taught math. He was a believer, and he was evaluating every math curriculum in the hall. So if you've been to a homeschool convention, you know that almost every curriculum that's available is in the hall. So he's a doctor of mathematics, teaching in a university, evaluating our curriculum. And so I asked him point blank, which one is the best? What are you finding? And he said to me that he felt that ours was the top of the pack, and that as far as teaching math, the depth of math and preparedness that it taught, he was very impressed. He said there are a couple things that he didn't necessarily like about the way it taught an angle, and he thought it should teach it another way. But overall, comparing us to all the other vendors in the hall, he felt that that was the top of the pack. And as I've dealt with some charter schools in the country that have implemented it, there are some different prestigious charter schools that have been excited that we brought it back into print, because the algebra has been available, but it wasn't necessarily actively in print. And so now it is. So algebra for 9th grade. Okay. That we're going to move to the geometry. Just in case you're wondering, the elementary algebra on Masterbook's website right now, if you were to buy it, the sale price is $125.78. If you bought it with the DVD, so the complete set, teacher, student book, teacher guide, and solutions manual, and DVD would be $196.81. Okay, so now on the geometry. So the geometry is this book. I'm trying, if anybody has questions, I am trying to see. Marky, does the DVD teach lessons? The DVD teaches the concepts for the lessons. It doesn't go through and teach problem by problem. That's really what you have the solutions manual for, to be able to do your work, look and see what is it that the author was asking and that type of thing. So it teaches the concepts. It doesn't handhold through the lessons. I think the algebra course is very good for critical thinking. I think it's not just an algebra course. It actually is teaching that math is the language, and this book expounds on that. Math is a language that describes the laws of nature, that govern everything, right? That were put in place by the Creator. Now, this book is not exclusively Christian, like Principles of Mathematics, where there's a continual relation in apologetics foundation. This book deals more with the math and relatable concepts. It is used often, and even in secular institutions. But there's everything in this fits our worldview. We've removed cartoons or references to things that we feel would be offensive, like if there was a smoking reference or something along the side that maybe we wouldn't want our children to be exposed to in a textbook. Those have been changed and removed. So we've kind of cleaned it up a little bit for our market to be more accessible. But the integrity of this book is pretty much intact. There are a lot of reviews on the web. You can go and do reviews, do a search for Jacob's Geometry or Jacob's Algebra, and you'll find the reviews to get another person's input. But I'm impressed by it more and more, even though I was not a math person. Okay, so the geometry book. So the Donald Albers, who is from the Mathematical Association of America, said, "This is one of the great geometry books of all time. It is the book I would have liked to have had for the geometry courses I taught in school and college. It is the finest example of instructional artistry that I have encountered." Can you get much better at that? It is the finest example of instructional artistry that I have encountered. And I as you go through that, he talks about it, I really think it is. There's another endorsement by somebody from, well, let me read this, because this is actually pretty good. Andrew Gleason from Harvard University says, 2,600 years ago, Thales of Miletus launched the idea that nature itself is subject to the laws of logic. Geometry, which had previously existed as a practical science, was found during the next few centuries to be tightly bound by logic. Some complex geometric facts were known to be consequences of far simpler facts, and soon similar analysis of more general ideas about the world became a standard for the Greek philosophers. The principle of stitching a few fundamental ideas together by logical analysis is at the heart of all modern science. And then it goes through and talks about the proof and how the need for solid proofs is needed in Americans' education system. And it ends with, this book restores the idea of proof to its rightful place in geometry. Whoever studies this text will know what a proof is, what has been proved, and what has not. That's the part of knowledge, application, and becoming wisdom, understanding that we live in a world of absolutes, and those absolutes were put in place by an almighty God, and we live according to those absolute laws, the languages that he has. Because of that, and I want to offer a special gift to everyone who watches this video, Jason Lyle, he is the author of our new logic course, but this is one of his best-selling books, Ultimate Proof of Creation, Resolving the Origins Debate. But he actually gives the ultimate proof, what he feels is the ultimate proof, and what I think is a phenomenal argument for the ultimate proof of creation and for God himself. This book, we're going to give a digital copy for free. The coupon code is going to be just proof, PROOF, at checkout, and you'd be able to get this book, pick this book digitally up for free, and look at it, get an idea of Jason's style, his arguments. And Jason is to me, he's kind of my rock star in the creation science movement. I think he has a gentlemanly demeanor, and he's an intelligent debater. You can see debates of him. I think he's debated Hugh Ross. I think he's debated a number of others alongside with Ken Ham. And this book is just well written. It's not necessarily always simple, but the arguments in it really will strengthen your faith. So I'm going to put that link here, but it's going to be for free. The digital copy is for free. Use coupon code PROOF. How did you like that tie-in? That was pretty remarkable. Okay. So this actually goes on in the first chapter, and he begins teaching some basic lessons, and he teaches like how to build a square using a ruler and a compass, and I need a better solution for lighting. I'm sorry, everybody. Here we go. And then it comes to a chapter at the end of the first, a lesson at the end of the first chapter that says, we can't go on like this. And he says, basically, so we've developed some solutions, but these solutions don't work for everything. And because of that, we have to develop a more complicated procedure for determining real answers. And so he even goes in to talk about like taxation, and with taxation, they were using formulas. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. And because of that, some people were paying more property taxes than other people were. And so the need for good logic in math, and that the proofs are established and the terminology is there, all of these things, he starts off right away. So he gives a little bit of math, then he says, but this math isn't going to be enough. You're also going to need to develop logic. This course is a phenomenal logic course as well. In fact, a lot of the country's founders and very brilliant people would take geometry to understand logic. I think there are math curriculums that will give your student an A or a B in geometry so that they can have that on their transcript. But I don't know that it will actually prepare them with the logic that geometry could, the richness and the depth of it that you'll get from this math course. Okay, so here's an example. He's teaching about lessons, and lesson 2 is about definitions. So in the when you're working, you need to make sure you have clearly defined definitions. And so it starts right out with an article, a horse by any other name is still a horse, and a zoning issue of a farmer who had more horses than was allowed by zoning, but he claimed that they weren't actually horses. They were, let's see, a horse is a horse, of course. Not quite, says breeder James Walker. He owns 3 horses, which he says the breeding industry defines precisely as male animals at least 5 years old and 58 inches high at the base of the neck. The rest of the 29 animal herd of Clover J. aerobians, he insists, consists of equines called mares, colts, fillies, geldings, and foals. And so it starts off with this story to say, do you see how important definitions are? So when we have definitions, we need to be able to clearly define what that definition is. And when we define a word in geometry, the word and its definition are understood to have exactly the same meaning. For example, when we say a triangle is a polygon with 3 sides, we can not only say that it is a figure. If a figure is a triangle, then it is a polygon that has 3 sides. But also, if a figure is a polygon that has 3 sides, then it is a triangle. And so they're teaching that concept of logic, that it's not there's not a variable in that definition. And that's how the book is written, very conversationally, very applied to, here's real world knowledge. Now let's begin to apply that and understand that knowledge in order to gain wisdom. So again, this has the book, the teacher guide, and the solutions manual. And it also has the DVD introductions where the concepts are taught in this. It's 4 hours in length. There's 5 DVDs in this series. And this will help them with the concepts that they're being taught in each of the chapters. Let's see. Okay, so the Algebra 2 course. In this series, there was not an Algebra 2 course. There is very loosely a proposal that has come to us for an Algebra 2 course. And so that may be on the horizons. That's in discussions right now. Okay. Dominique says, thanks for doing these curriculum overviews. It helps me to plan for my children's education. Well, thank you for watching and being interested in these overviews. Of any of the subjects I'm least comfortable doing, it is the math. And I feel that I was robbed educationally. Now that's a terrible victimization statement, but the math, I did put a letter on a transcript, right? But it didn't prepare me for college. And that college was such a struggle in the math side, because all I was given was just kind of knowledge, work with the knowledge, regurgitate back the knowledge. I really never understood or applied that wisdom and created it into wisdom. After I graduated from college and I got into the real world, and I actually was given a financial calculator and said, okay, let's start working these equations to come up with things. I actually got to be part of developing some really complex spreadsheets to help us make a lot more sales and be a lot more profitable. But it was because I was actually learning how to apply the knowledge that my mentor was giving me, as opposed to this book that was, okay, this is what it is. This is, what we're going to do, but it didn't relate it. It didn't make me work with it and turn it into that. So, okay. We have the geometry books right now, and masterbooks.com is $122.08. That's for the student book, the teacher guide, and the solutions manual. If you buy the DVD as well, it's $193.12. This month only, we don't do this very often, but this month only we're doing a Math 10 coupon. So if you go to checkout and you decide, hey, I want to do this and order this book, and you use the coupon code MATH10, MATH10 at checkout, we will take an additional 10% off from the order total. And so you can save a little bit of money on that. So if it's $196.81, I believe the coupon will take off like $19.60. And of course, on both of these sets, there is free shipping, so you don't pay any shipping on that as well. And that set itself, I think the site is discounting it around 26% off is what all of our set prices are. If you have some other curriculums that you're looking to buy, you can actually bump that discount up to 30%, and then you can use the 10% coupon and get that the additional off from the order total there. So I think that these are both academic treasures. I'm excited that we were able to obtain them and bring them to our customers, because they're so good for critical thinking and and teaching logic. And so our kids are going to go into a culture that is becoming very intellectual, very good at throwing out definitions that are not accurate. They're very good at throwing out formulas that don't add up. And I feel in some ways that kids, the generations right now, and it isn't just this, but even the previous generations, we've done a disservice by not learning critical thinking skills and solid logic. So then we come to these things and we end up making very emotional decisions. We can't really defend our truths, and we can't even define our truths. And so we easily accept other truths. And if you're a student of the Bible and you understand a little bit about kind of the culmination of the age, many people are going to be deceived. And understanding the Bible, having the Holy Spirit as a guide is so important. But also, I believe having the ability to step back and ask good questions about what's going on. In our New Leaf Publishing side, we publish a lot of books on prophecy. And it's fascinating to listen to some of the prophecy experts talk about the world events that are going on and the fulfillment of prophecies, biblical prophecies that are happening right now in the world, and how things are accelerating at such a pace, and how excited they are. And I am too. But I just feel a real sense of urgency with our kids, that we are preparing these kids to face Goliaths that we never had to face. And it's our duty to give them the tools and the resources and the abilities to do better than we have. So the vision I have, as I'm almost at the 50-year-old mark, is I've had the opportunity to run my lab, and I'm preparing the baton to begin to hand to the next generation to run their lab. And it may very well be the final lab, but I want them to run it well. I want to give them as much of a head start and an opportunity as I can. And a lot of what you see in Master Book's curriculum, our intent is to prepare them, to give them a solid foundation, and to give them as much of an advantage and an opportunity to go further. So when we see your kindergartners, your first graders, your elementary students, your high school students, when we see them getting excited about learning, and we see them beginning to make curriculum their own and get excited about the things of God and the proofs of the Bible and the proof of His Word and that type of stuff, we get excited because we feel like we're really participating in what God is doing in this day and this age. So, good. Well, hopefully this answered some questions. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us here. I'm going to put a link up for Ultimate Proof of Creation. Again, this book, you can get free digital copy. Use coupon code PROOF at checkout, and you can get the digital copy of that. I think we also, related items that are going to be there, he wrote Understanding Genesis. He wrote Discerning Truth. He wrote 420 Reasons. I think it's, something in the Age of Reason. I'm sorry. That book is a fantastic read of 420 biblical contradictions, supposed biblical contradictions, where he goes through them, identifies the fallacy and logic, and then explains the truth. And I gained so much theologically going through that book and just reading the arguments that people would say, well, there's a contradiction in Scripture. And then he would give the fallacy in their thinking, and then he would explain why it's not a fallacy. And that link is going to be, I think if you click on the link for this, that book should be linked there as well. And we lowered the price on all of Jason's digital products in the apologetics and books related to Ultimate Proof. So he's a fantastic teacher to learn this from. And of course, his new logic course is coming out the end of this year, and I am so excited about it. I just think it's going to be the best logic course in homeschooling. So, all right, well, we'll be with you on Thursday. Thursday, I'm going to be continuing to answer the questions that were submitted 2 weeks ago or a week ago. And this week, we're going to talk about the topic of homeschooling dads and the challenges of a homeschooling dad and the challenges that a mom has with a homeschooling dad. And so it should be a great opportunity and subject for me to get myself into a lot of trouble. Good. God bless you guys. Have a great day. And we continue to pray that each and every one of you has a blessed year, that your children, your relationship deepens with your children, and most importantly, that their relationship to their Creator, Almighty God, and His Son, Jesus Christ, deepens intensely as well. Have a blessed day. We will talk to you on Thursday.